Okay, I think I'm going to let everybody in and hello and welcome everybody to the Year 3 CAT4 webinar. I'm going to share my my screen and best warn everybody at this point that this workshop is being recorded so that you can re-watch it later, and it will be shared amongst the parent group so that anybody who wasn't able to make it this morning can watch again later. So the aim of this workshop or webinar is really to just let you know what kind of information you would expect to find in the CAT4 parent reports. The Year 3s over the last couple of weeks have been doing the CAT4 assessments, and so it's really to tell you what that is, what it looks like, what information you will receive, how we in primary use that information to inform learning and teaching and tracking of our children's progress, and how you can use that information to support learning from home as well. So before I start with all of those things, we can look at the kind of values and attitudes that we have about assessment at Britannica. So we believe in every student. We believe that every student can achieve. We believe in sharing the learning goals with our children so that they know what they're working towards and also how to get there. We believe in providing feedback to our children so that they know what they need to do to take their learning and their progress to the next step. And we're confident that with the right support and the right level of challenge, every child can progress and reach their potential. Now, there are two different types of assessments that we do at Britannica. One we like a lot better than the other. So we have assessment for learning and assessment of learning. We prefer assessment for learning. So if we think of this as the garden analogy, so if we think of our children as plants, if we're using assessment for learning, or another way of calling it formative assessment, it's a little bit like we take regular measurements of the plants as they grow and we make little adjustments based on their growth. So we might add a little bit more water, a little bit more sun, a little bit more plant food and nutrients according to what that they need. And what the assessments, the measurements that we're taking affect our behaviour and has a direct impact on how well they grow. A little like our assessments. So if we take lots of little assessments of our children and what they can do in reading, writing and maths or whatever, then we make little adjustments into our planning of lessons, and it will affect how well the children learn. So we will give a little bit more support, word banks or templates or number lines or whatever they need. We give them extra things and it helps them to progress more quickly. Now, summative assessment or assessment of learning just gives us a snapshot, a measurement. It's like taking those plants and measuring how tall they are. It gives you information about how tall they are, but it doesn't have any impact on how well they grow at all. It's the same in assessments. We can take assessments of our children and we know what they can do. It doesn't help them learn any better. It just tells us what they can do on their own. And so it has a place. We need to know what the children can do, but obviously we prefer things that have an impact on learning. When do we assess? So we assess throughout the year. We've already so far done reading, writing and maths assessments, and we will do more reading, writing and maths assessments after half term, towards the end of this very long autumn winter term. We do what we call, for year 3 in particular, we do the Head Start reading to start with, and then again at the end, and it measures how much the children have learned in throughout the term. We do 2 writing assessments, so we do a fiction and a non-fiction, again throughout the term, to measure how much more the children can do as the term progresses, and create targets from that. We do the maths assessment as well, and we do fortnightly mental maths tests. Those are the ones that parents will be familiar with, because we see them for homework. So the children have a practice at home. They like to maybe translate vocabulary, maybe they practice some of the strategies, calculations, and then they come to school and they have very similar questions at school as well, and it basically tells the teachers what the children can do, and what they need to teach them or revise with them, to go over with them. And so that gives a formative assessment to the teachers. We also have checkpoints as well. So data analysis, what we do is we look at the children's levels and learning, and we decide who needs to attend an intervention group for a little bit of an extra support. And we track progress throughout the term and throughout into next term as well, throughout the year. Obviously, in term 1, we do the CAT4 for new students in year 3. They also do it in year 7, year 10, and actually year 12 as well. And that's because it gives information about what the children should achieve by the end of the key stage. So year 3 is the beginning of key stage 2. Year 7 is the beginning of key stage 3, so it gives you a prediction and something and targets to work towards for the end of the key stage. That's why we do it at those times. You can see as well into next term, we do a repetition of the Head Start, the writing, and the mental maths test. Term 3, we do the PTE and PTM. You probably, if you are a returning family, you will know that that stands for progress test in English and progress test in maths, and they also come home to parents. They give you some information about your child, what they can do in reading and maths specifically. Just for your information, the year 1 is slightly different. They do much more phonics and a baseline assessment as well, but I will move on from that because we are talking about year 3. So how else do we assess? So during guided reading, we are assessing all the time. Every question we ask, we listen in on their conversations. When they're talking about reading with their group, we question the children during lessons, either when it's a whole group, or we get them to use talk partners, and then we eavesdrop what their children are talking about, and so that we know if they've understood something or whether we need to address a misconception. We have informal discussions all the time, like, can you explain how you got to this answer? What are you going to write next? All the time, and then and that tells us information about how well a child has understood. Yeah, we mark the children's books, so we will look at the written learning the children have done. Usually we prefer to mark the books within the lesson, because if we wait until after the lesson, it's a lot harder for the children to fix things. It's easier for them to make instant adjustments based on feedback within the lesson. We find that learning happens better when the children receive instant feedback. So we call it live marking, so that on the spot, the teachers are walking around with their purple and green highlighters, and they're saying, oh, perfect, this is perfect purple, and underline what the children are doing beautifully. And the green is for growth. That's something that needs to be improved or developed in some way. And so the teacher will underline that and get the children to fix it on the spot. All the time, the teacher is taking information about what the children can do as they are walking around the room and marking the books. We also look at homework projects and subjects. It's quite useful to be able to see what the children can do away from the classroom. In the classroom, it's very supported and very scaffolded. So when the children, particularly younger children in year 1, 2 and 3, when they are doing introducing an activity, what the teacher starts the discussion about it. They will talk to talk partners. The teacher will model something on the board. The children will practice on whiteboards. They will then talk about it with their partner. They will then have a success criteria, which is almost like the ingredients for a successful outcome. They will have word maps. They will have templates. They will have an example of what a good one looks like on the board to help them remember procedures and what to include on the working wall. They'll have all of these things around them to support their learning and help them be successful. When they're at home, they don't have those things. So when the teacher sees them in the classroom, they can see them being really successful. It's useful to know that it's not secure yet, and they're not as successful when they're doing an activity at home. So if you have had to help your child a lot with their homework, it's always good to say, or just to give up and just do a little note for the teacher, said, actually, we were working at this for 20 minutes. They found it really hard, so we gave up. And that's fine, because the teacher's job is to teach them and to know that they can't do something. So so we do take our assessments from homework projects as well. Okay. Right, onwards. Let's go back to CAT4. Now we know a little bit about assessments and things. I wanted to show you what the CAT4 assessment looks like. So when your child opens their computer, this is what they will see. So it tells there are 2 short tests which split into 4 parts, hence CAT4. And it tells you that it gives us different information about 4 different areas. So it actually stands for a cognitive ability test with 4 areas. And so it is things like ability, quantitative ability, non-verbal ability, and spatial ability. The children are told that they may find some of the questions easy, and they might find some of them hard. They should try every question, but not to spend too much time on any one. The CAT4 is a timed test, but they have a really long time to do it, and they almost always have lots of time left to go back and check all of their answers. They can't press end test and just finish. They have to go back and check answers. All of them finish within the time limit as well. So so we don't really want them to spend too much time on anything. Just go on to the next one, and they'll have plenty of time to come back and look at something that they may find a bit harder at the end. So when they first open their computer, they will need to enter their unique access code, which the teacher gives them. It gives them instructions on how to go through the test, how to actually navigate each of the different questions. So it tells them that if the numbers at the bottom are grey, it means they've completed those questions. The kind of bluey greenish one is the question that they're on, and the white numbers are the questions they haven't started yet. It tells you them to try and answer every question. They have 10 minutes for each section of the test. So because it's in 2 parts and each part has 2 parts, each one takes about 20 minutes of actual time, but then the setup and the talking through the teacher and everything as well. So they can easily do it within a period at school. These are the kind of questions that they have to answer. So this is an example of them having to look at these figures or these shapes and decide what is the same about them. These three here, the children should recognise that they all have four sides and they are all grey colour. So they look down here and they should be searching for a four-sided shape that is also the colour grey. This one is a practice question that the children, that is read to them. So the children are all wearing headphones and they listen to the question being read out, and they listen to the instructions, and they practice clicking on the correct answer and clicking the next button as well. Here's another example of a practice question. So the children here should look here at these ones, and they should recognise that these are two semicircles. There's a black one and a black and white stripy one, and they are touching on the corner and they are facing opposite ways. So they should be looking down here, like this one, for example, there's no black semicircle. This one, there's no stripy semicircle. This one, they're not facing opposite ways. So it's this one. So this is the kind of logic that the children should be going through. This is a practice question that enables them to look at this, and actually the teachers are allowed to discuss the practice questions and why this was the correct answer as well. Okay, now we get this is one of the actual questions in the test. This is not what was not a practice one. You can see that the time is counting down at the top, so the children can always see how much time they have left to do. And then they have to select one of the answers and click next. This one was a practice one, I think. Yeah, it is, because it's got the asterisk bottom, that's right. So here is a different one. This one has a big square and a small square, a big circle, and logically there would be a small circle that goes here. Again, the children click it and just select their answer and then press next. And this is a practice one as well, actually. So it's one arrow up, two arrow up, one arrow down. Should be two arrows down, so this one here. This is another practice one. So so you've got three arrows up coming from a central point, and here are six arrows going down, three circles up, and there should be six circles down below the line there. This is another pattern one, so it goes hexagon, triangle, square, hexagon, square, hexagon, and then missing would be a triangle. Okay, so those are the kind of questions that you can see. There are actually some verbal ones as well, which I might be able to show you in a minute as well. So how do we use the CAT4? It's really to look at a child's strengths and their weaknesses, and it gives us an idea of how the children are going to really learn well and what strategies we could use to help the children learn really well. We can also look at our cohort as a group of all of year 3 or all of Dali or all of Kolodko. So we can look at how we need to adjust how we present our activities. We might need to look at where we might need a bit of extra intervention support. And we can identify either a group of children or individual children who also may be underachieving. For example, the CAT4 is a cognitive abilities test. So it kind of tells us what the child's potential is. If their potential is much higher than what they are actually achieving in their reading tests, for example, or their maths test, we can start to look at why that might be. What is it that is preventing the children from achieving their potential? Is it some kind of underlying learning need? Is it some massive gaps in their learning that they need to fill before they're able to fully show what they can do? Is it a language issue? Is it a behavior issue? Is their learning behaviors getting in the way of them achieving their potential? It's a really good way of starting a conversation with teachers and to really kind of unpick how we can help our children learn best. So the CAT4 is useful when used with all the other information and the data that we have on our children. Yeah, we can look at trends over time and track how things change over time. We can set targets. The CAT4 assessments do tell us what kind of levels that the children should get when they get to the end of year 6, but also if they are really challenged and given lots of support to get there, what they could achieve. Of course, that's our aim, to go to just push them a little bit further, and hopefully get them to their, if challenged, predicted level as well. It also helps to give us some information about what value we are adding as a school. That means how much we are helping our children to progress more than they ordinarily would. So it helps us to track that and make sure that we're doing the best that we can for our children. Oh, I just moved it on. There we go. Okay, so this is the kind of information that we get. These are fake names, by the way. I'm not sharing this for our children. So this is the kind of information that we get. You've got a verbal column here, and that tests children's knowledge and understanding of words and grouping words, word associations, those kinds of things. Also, to a certain degree, phonics and reading as well, because the children will need to read some of the words that are presented. So obviously, if your child is learning English, is quite new to English, they will have a lower verbal level. This level will change over time as they learn more English. We expect our EAL children, like children who are receiving EAL support or have recently received EAL support, they will score lower on verbal at the moment. That is not fixed, though. It means that as they learn more English, their verbal level will go up. Obviously, it only reflects their verbal level in English, not their mother tongue or any other language. There is also a quantitative column here. The quantitative means number patterns, number sequences, and it's not calculations per se. It's more recognizing and working with numbers and patterns and things. It does relate, though, to maths abilities. So if you have a high quantitative score, you'd expect that really to translate a little into their maths attainment, what they know and can do in maths. Non-verbal relates to their spotting of patterns and being able to make connections and solve problems, and spatial really is associated with shape and space and visualizing. So you have this here. This also relates to their mathematical ability too. So quantitative is more number, spatial is more shape and space, and so we look at those in particular in relation to maths, and obviously verbal we look at in relation to reading and writing. The CAT4 gives us information that tell us compare our children against the national average. So if you take the assessments of all children in the UK, then you get what is a bell curve. This is a normal distribution curve. So you find most children are in this section here. This is exactly average. Exactly average would be a score of 100. But the vast majority of children are in this section here. And then you have a band that are above average and a band that are very high here, which is maybe 4% of children. Same here, you get below average here, and this would be very low ability in those areas there as well. So it does give us some information about where we are at compared to the national average. It tells us things like this as well. So it's here you would, if everyone's was balanced, so they scored 100 for verbal, 100 for spatial, 100 for quantitative, 100 for non-verbal, so they're even across the board, then they would be on this line here. But children don't work that way, so they have natural strengths in some areas and weaknesses in others, and so children who have a verbal bias would be here, and children who have a spatial bias would be here. And it just basically shows the teachers, we have a cohort that tend to be more verbally biased, therefore some of our explanations and our the way that we help our children to practice and assimilate information should be verbally based. It gives you information here about the biases as well. Just try and mix them there. Okay. So it gives you a list of names of children that fall into this category. So children who have an extreme verbal bias, so that they're much better verbally than they are spatially, tend to be those who really excel in written work. They enjoy discussion, they enjoy debates. They tend to prefer to learn through reading, writing. They might be very independent. They tend to enjoy subjects that require good verbal skills, such as English, languages, the humanities like history, for example. They might prefer to learn step by step based on prior knowledge as well. So it actually gives you some ideas of what the learners will look like at that level if they have an extreme bias for verbal ability. Again, this one is moderate bias, that they will actually prefer step by step as well. They prefer reading and writing. And then there's mild verbal bias as well. Most children you'll see actually fall into the no bias section. So here, this is not our children, it's that will be private information. This is a sample group. This is basically children who were fairly balanced, and children who are balanced with high scores tend to excel across their curriculum and learn through a range of methods. Students with low even scores may need lots of support, but will be open to a range of teaching and learning methods. So you can access and support them with lots of different methods. And then you've got spatial bias. If you've got children who are much more have a much higher spatial ability than they do verbal ability, then these children may actually excel in other things like problem solving. So they might actually grasp ideas and concepts quite quickly, but not be able to articulate or explain how they know or how they arrived at that solution or reason why that solution is correct either. They may not do things in ordered steps. they might actually see the bigger picture and just arrive at the correct answer and make connections without actually being aware of a sequence or steps. They tend to be better at subjects that require good visual spatial skills like maths, physics, or technology, arts. They may have a relative weakness in verbal skills, and so they may need support in subjects which emphasize the written word. Again, if your child is receiving EAL support, they will probably have some kind of spatial bias. That means that they will already be getting support in anyway for their verbal kind of side through their EAL lessons. So we get this kind of prediction. So it tells us what the CAT4 thinks the children will get at the end of year 6, what kind of levels they will get at the end, if challenged as well. And we track this as well. This is our tracking sheets. They look like this. So the CAT4 is here in green, and here in green. And what we do is we compare that to the PTE, which is the progress test in English, the reading test, and the PTM. So, for example, here we have a child who scored 101 on their CAT4 verbal assessment. So 101 is pretty much exactly average ability for this girl was exactly average ability for her CAT4. And then in the PTE, she scored 124. That is in the very high ability range. So here it is showing that she is now achieving beyond her potential. So she has actually received a lot of support either through EAL or other interventions and other differentiated support within the classroom, and she is actually achieving beyond the expectation based on her ability. If there was somebody who was underperforming, I can't see anybody who was underperforming at the moment. Yes, I found one. So this boy down here scored 132 on his verbal ability, but in his progress test in English, he scored 102. That would be a child we would be asking questions of. So obviously, this child has a high verbal ability, but it hasn't translated into his reading skills yet. Why? Is it that he has some kind of learning need like dyslexia or gaps in phonics? Does he need extra support with that? Is there something else that's going on? Is it behavior? Is it that he needs extra language support and he is not fully accessing the meaning of the stories? Was he rushing when he did the PTE? What is it that happened that has been caused that disparity between his with his ability in his verbal ability and his reading attainment, like what he demonstrated he can do? So again, it starts some really useful conversations from this tracking document, and we have time during our staff meetings as well for teachers to get together and ask these questions and start to really explore with each other and what they can do to help as well. So the children, I think 23 children I checked yesterday had completely finished their CAT4, but not all of them. Some of them are still completing their CAT4 assessments this week. So you will get the parent reports after half term now. They'll come home and there will be some information on there for you to look at. However, you may need a little bit of support to understand what it all means. That's what this is for. So the SAS means the standardized age score. So the children get a number between 41 and 141. So 41 is extremely low. It is the lowest score that you can get. 141 is extremely high. It's the highest score you can get. Most children will be scoring in this average range in between. So it's completely expected that children will be scoring between 89 and 111 standardized age score points. And so if you see your child scoring in this range, that means they are average. They're doing exactly what they should be for their age. Children who are 112 to 126 would be above average for whatever ability area they score that for. John, anything over 126 is very high. Further, it tries to simplify things. I'm not sure whether it is any simpler, but it tries to simplify things by also giving air stunning. This is short for standard 9. So it takes all of these sections here and it splits them into 9 instead. So you can see above 126 should be in the 9th stunning. If you were above average here, you might be in the 7th or 8th stunning, maybe the 6th stunning. Here you might be in the yes, you'll be in the 7th or 8th. Here you'll be in the 4th, 5th, or 6th stunning. Here you'll be in the 3rd. Here you'll be in the 2nd, and here you'll be in the 1st stunning. So it's basically split all of these into 9 to try to make it simpler. So you'll get a standard 9. You'll get a stunning as well, so you can see where your child would fall compared to the national average. This is also what you will get on your parent report. So it actually shows you the child's ability, and this yellow band in the middle is the average range. If you see here, if your child is scoring here, they will be their bar will be in this average range. So this child here is in the average range for verbal, non-verbal, and spatial. They are slightly higher for verbal, so they are in the high middle ability for verbal, and they're slightly high ability for quantitative. So you'd expect this child to have a slight strength maybe in maths, and they have a slight verbal bias, so they might like to learn step by step. They might like to discuss their ideas. They might like to share with a partner, reason, explain. Whereas this child here is average for verbal. It looks like they're probably around 103, something like this, right in the middle. But they're showing a spatial bias. So they are quite high ability in their spatial ability. This means this child might be good at problem solving. They might be able to just instantly see a solution to a problem, and they may be able to see the bigger picture. So they probably would be able to talk about it, their average verbal ability, but they will probably demonstrate a stronger spatial ability based on this profile. Here you can see that this child has a very low spatial ability. So they might find it quite difficult to see the bigger picture. They will need to draw upon their verbal ability, which is in the average range. They will need to be able to talk through their problems. They will need to have a step-by-step guide because their spatial ability is quite low. Okay, there's some more examples. This one is they're a high verbal ability, for example. Again, you would be able to play on their strengths and work to the strengths of this child to help them support a weaker area, so they might be maybe weaker in problem solving and seeing that bigger picture, whereas verbally they'll be very able to discuss, to read, to write their ideas down. So this is the kind of information that you will get as well. So it gives predictions based on what they should achieve and what if they could achieve if they were challenged. These numbers, though, are slightly confusing because they don't quite relate to the standardized age score that we use in reading, maths, and for the CAT4. So these predictor grades are a completely different scale to the other ones that we use, which makes it very confusing for parents, teachers, everybody. So sorry about that. We are. This is the kind of information that that you will get in the written part of your parent report when you receive it after half term. So it will interpret a little bit the graph that you will get, with the bar graph you will get, and it will give you some ideas for helping with homework. I'm going to mix them one of them away to me. This child has more of a spatial ability. They have a spatial bias. So they might be able to solve a problem quickly, but they can't explain to you how they solved the problem or how they reached the answer. Maybe won't be able to show any working out, and they so they might need a bit of extra support with that. So again, because there is a spatial bias, you should encourage them to use maps, pictures, charts, diagrams, basically pictures and clues and sequences that will help them to remember information and to sequence information. Getting them to discuss information is not going to be as helpful. So it kind of gives you some strategies that are going to help your particular child to learn better. Let's move on to this one. This is an evenly balanced profile, but it still gives some good advice on what you can do to support your child. Often it will advise you to do things like read widely outside of school. I would always recommend that for everybody, because books reading in any language is how you learn about grammar and vocabulary and the world, and how to structure a story, and how to structure a sentence, and ideas and imagination and creativity. So I definitely always recommend that. And also maybe joining clubs outside of school as well, like drama or science club. It's suggesting here too. Here we go. And this one is another one that's evenly balanced. This one is a verbally biased. So this a child who has a verbal bias, so they have a higher verbal ability. They're going to learn best when they're working step by step through a task. They will find they'll have good attention to detail. Let's say we'll find it difficult to make links and connections, or to explain something that's not easily expressed through words. They might enjoy subjects that use words more, like English and history, rather than science and design or math. And use pictures, diagrams, models as study aids across all subjects. That would also help develop those skills. And again, reading widely for pleasure is always recommended for anybody at any time. So just some key points then from the presentation is that the children take these cognitive ability tests at the start of each key stage. So year 3, year 7, year 10 and year 12. The teachers will use this information to track, they will use it to target, to create interventions and to change the strategies that we use with our children. But you can also use this information for your child, to understand your child as a learner and change the way that you support them at home with homework as well. Okay, so I've got to this point where we just ask if there are any questions. I'm probably going to stop sharing at this point too. So if you have any questions about the CAT4 assessments, like, I don't know, anything that you want to know, then you can unmute yourself and ask away if you'd like. I don't know if mics are allowed to be turned on. I'm just gonna maybe allow people to turn on your mic. I think I've just allowed you all. Okay. All right. Well, if you have no questions.
Yeah, hi, Maureen.
Oh,
Lakshmi.
hello.
So Lakshmi here.
Hi.
So I would like to understand whether this CAT4 exam has already been taken for the kids, or is it about to happen?
Some children have already taken it and some of them are in the process of taking it. So it's likely that she's already taken it. But it's important to note that there's no revision for these tests. It's an ability test. You can't revise for ability, but we would never recommend that any year 3 revises for any test anyway. It's a snapshot. So, but yeah, they probably have taken it already in Kolodko.
Okay, so how would we know that whether this test has been attended by my kid or not, and when the reports will be shared with us?
So you can find out, but probably by asking your child, by asking your child's class teacher. Your child might not know if they've finished it completely or not. I don't know, but the class teacher will. Because not everyone has finished it. I was checking last night as well. I don't think you're going to get them until after half term now. I'm going to check with Mr. Willoughby and with Miss Hobson, but I think it's going to be after half term. When you receive the reports, there will be an explanation letter as well. So there will be basically some of the things that I've been saying in this presentation is also like a help sheet that goes with it, with the test, the report as well, and that should help, coupled with this presentation, hopefully for you to understand it all.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Anything you want to know? Okay. All right. Well, if you do think of any questions, then you can always email me. If you have any specific questions about your child learning, particularly after you receive the assessment, you may have some questions or want to discuss with your child's class teacher. Please feel free to do that. It's really, we like questions. We like it when you engage with the information we're sending home with you. And if you don't understand it, I would always advise book an appointment and to meet with your child's class teacher, where they would be happy to talk it through with you. Okay, thank you so much to everyone for attending. Thank you for your questions, Lakshmi, and please continue. If you have any further questions, please ask away. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.